Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining Platform Analytics Academy on here today, October the 18th. Greatly appreciated. For anybody that is a returner, welcome back. If you're new to this, welcome. Glad that you came. Hopefully you will definitely get something out of this and you'll be a returner in a couple weeks and going further. So real quickly, I just want to kind of go over a couple of logistical items and then we'll be able to get directly into our content, which we're all very excited about. So with that, as usual, this is always for you. We're trying to bring fresh ideas, better understanding, and some practical guidance to using reporting, performance analytics, platform analytics experience, and other things within the platform itself. So again, this is for you. This will be recorded. It will be out on the community later on this afternoon or early tomorrow morning. It as well will be out in our community on our YouTube channel, so you can look for it there as well. Q&A, please ask questions. Utilize the Q&A if you can. We do have other panelists that are on the call that aren't presenting today, but they'll be there to answer questions. And if they can do those via type, they'll do that. If they are questions that we need to answer live, we'll definitely do that as well. And if we need to stop at a certain point because it is relevant to that, we don't mind doing that as well. If you do ask a question that is unrelated to the content that we're covering today, please feel free to ask those as well. And if those can get answered via type, or if we have to wait till the end of the call when we've covered all this content, we'll definitely try to get to those as well. If we don't get to those, then please ask those questions in the community, and you can tag any one of us that are on the call today, and we'll definitely help you get the answer to that question. Safe harbor. So Adam may talk about this as well. There may or may not be some content inside of his presentation today that covers that, but we always like to make sure that we put it here just in case. Just so you know that whatever's here today, make sure that you keep it in context as it's related to the safe harbor. And this is actually a little bit wrong because Adam is our host, and I remembered not to that I didn't change this as soon as the presentation started. But I am Thomas Davis. I am your host today, and Adam actually is a presenter, and I have Tara and Dan is here as well, and we're all here to answer questions. But Adam himself. And if you've never experienced one of his sessions, then sit back and relax. It's going to be a really great one. But he is the presenter today. And today we're going to talk about leveraging Gen AI for analytics, code assist. And again, we all look forward to this. So Adam, with that, it is yours to take over.
Great. Thanks, Thomas. I'm just going to switch over and we'll pull up my deck, which doesn't have such a good graphic as what you had. I'll go ahead and turn my camera on for today. And everybody seeing the presentation?
We are.
All right, great. So let's get started. Today we are talking about using Now Assist for Creator and some of the use cases that we can use for analytics. I've made it to the first slide before the safe harbor really came into place. We are working on Now Assist for Analytics on how we'll use AI to really power our analytics. But what we're talking about today is how we use what's already released. There is more coming in next year. But today we are looking at stuff that was released actually last month in Now Assist for Creator. And if you have any questions about licensing, that's something you want to talk about with your account team. But we're going to be using Now Assist for Creator and those use cases for us. All right, so we're going to be talking about just a quick intro into what Now Assist is, and specifically Now Assist for Creator. And then we're going to talk about where do we script. Now Assist for Creator has a few features today, and I'll talk about one that is coming out. So I made it to 2 slides, and now I need the safe harbor twice. And then we're going to really spend the meat of this presentation doing a demo. So I have some things we're going to walk through, but you can throw some other things at me. We're going to do a live demo with our AI with Now Assist. And then, of course, as we go along, we'll do Q&A at the end. But if you have questions, please put them into the question and answer panel as we're going, and so we'll answer those. All right, so Now Assist for Creator, where the real focus is for Now Assist for Creator is our developers. And what you'll hear us refer to a lot of the things are generation. So we have code generation, flow generation is what we're working on to come out later this year. Well, you also hear them just kind of referred to as text to code, text to flow, text to analytics when it comes out. The real names are flow generation, code generation, but I'll probably slip up like I do on the slide and talk text to X. That's Creator. There are many other Now Assist features. Those are generally not in Creator. They're going to be in Now Assist for ITSM, Now Assist for CSM, and all the different workflows. So what we are talking about now Assist for Creator, the two skills that are released, and we refer to these as skills on where we're using different AI models. The first one is now is flow recommendations. So if I'm in Flow Designer, we're not going to use this today, but just so that this is in here, if I'm in Flow Designer, when I add an action, it's going to recommend the next action. When I add one action after that, it's going to recommend the next action based on the trigger that I picked and everything that comes out. Really great time savings because I don't have to do so many clicks, and it's really, really common as to what you're going to do next. There's only so many patterns that come through, but the LLM is learning and recommending what makes sense based on what you've done. For all of Creator, it's generally done on subprods because we're talking about flows, we're talking about scripting. It's not restricted. It actually would work on prod, but generally what we're doing and everything we're going to be doing today, we would want to do in a subprod, and then we promote it up through our normal means. Once you activate this, there's no implementation, so we can just turn it on and it works. Turn it on, follow the docs, and in a few minutes, it's on, it's working. The real key thing on what we're doing, and this is for all the generators, flow generator, code generator, when we get to analytics generator, your success depends on your prompts. And so we're going to be talking about how do I write a good prompt? You have to ask it what to do. Most of the other skills, or many of the other skills, have to do with data, and whether it's summarizing or reading sentiment or whatever has to come through. You have to implement them, you configure them, and then it just works for all your fulfillers. In this case, we're really talking about how do we empower the analysts to create new things that make life better for everybody else. But prompts are very important. It's important that you stay up to date with where our recommendations are for prompts on how to get out what you're looking for. So, like I said, the Flow Now Assist recommendations for Flow Designer. This is in Flow Assist, and I can turn this on, and then as I'm working, it's going to recommend the next step. If I do a lookup, it's going to recommend, do you want to do a for each? Do you want to do an update? Those are the common things that happen, and it picks those out for you and recommends it. Again, this has been released and is ready to go right now. What we're going to spend our time today is Now Assist for Code is the application name. The skill that you'll see is Code Assist when it comes through. And for Code Assist, there's two main modules, two main functions that happen. They both come together, they work together, but just as we walk through these things. We have code generation, where I can give it a comment. You might have heard this as comment to code or text to code. I give it a comment on what I want it to do, and then it does that. The other part we use is code completion and code complete, where I might start part of my code and I can have it complete. We'll be talking about both of those things. We'll be demoing both of them as we go. And Now Assist for Code and code generation, as we go through, a couple of use cases we see that we'll see here. So things like a switch or a try. Sometimes I don't remember the syntax. Code Complete will just do it for me. And it's not just a template. It's not just IntelliSense that said, here are the values that come through, but it will actually give you different code based on what you've written. And we'll see an example. We'll go through it with switch statement on how the different switch statement based on my variable names and what it can get out of that, it's going to recommend or suggest different code to complete. So the more information you give it, the better the recommendation is going to be. More is better. Really great. I use it a lot for exercising APIs because in the past I would go through and I'd have to bring up the doc site and I'd go find an example. If the example wasn't great, maybe I would go to the community, I'd Google it, give me an example of this API call. I'd go look at the API call, I'd paste it into my code, and I have to go edit a bunch of things. All that goes away because as long as if I know the name of the API, great. And if I don't, I can describe the API and it will give me a lot of the parameters, the common things that happen. And the more I tell it I want it to do, if I give it the actual API name, it's going to use that API name. If I tell it which parameters I want to send it, it will do it. If I describe the parameter, it's probably still going to be able to get what I want. And then it's also really important with Now Assist, context matters. We're continuing to expand. Another safe harbor slide. Made it to slide 7, right? This is a lot of stuff coming in the future, but context matters. It will work today based on the other code that's in the script block, based on a script include is different than a fixed script, is different than an email script. It understands that and it's going to generate the right code. Incredibly powerful, helpful, and it just saves me a lot of time from having to go get those examples. I still have to read the code that's generated, but man, it's great time savings. But that context matters. And again, because we're building this with ServiceNow, the ServiceNow team is building it. we're adding in as much context as we can all around the place, and it'll continue to evolve and get smarter and understand where you are and what you're looking for. It's not just vanilla JavaScript. That's the big difference, right? We're focusing mostly on JavaScript today, but it's not just a code generator. It's not a JavaScript code generator. It's a ServiceNow generator and all the different skills, all the different places you need different code. We're going to see what goes on, and we'll hit more of that in the demo. And if we put those in the chat in the Q&A, we'll try some of your suggestions, some of the things you're looking for. All right, now let's talk about where to script. So for analytics, this is where we're going to spend the majority of our time. First thing we're going to talk about is relationships. And these are under system definition, relationships. Relationships I really like. Now, this is not super analytically. It's not a report, it's not PA, but I find this incredibly helpful for my users, so I wanted to bring it up. Relationships allow us to create related lists that are not just direct references. So whether I'm going through a multiple dot walk reference, that's important, or just really common information I want. These work in both classic and core UI. Core UI, I have related lists at my bottom, but it also works the same in workspaces to let me define related lists. So a couple of examples that I'll have where they're not straight references are the same caller, incidents with the same caller, changes to the same CI, where I'm taking one field in what I'm looking at. It's still data that's based on my form, based on my record, but I'm able to get other things that are going on. So if I have an incident, I want to see, well, what other incidents has this caller had? Or what other incidents has this department have? The reason I bring it up here is because a lot of times we have to have reports that come through, or I might have a dashboard with interactive filters to bring that information together. Well, now I can just do that on the fly as a related list. Now we got to have a little bit of control here, a little bit of self-control, because it does have to load them and query them. So I don't want to do it for every possible thing that's out there. Don't want to have 300 related lists at the bottom of a form. But if there's some that are really common, really important to us, then I want to look at using a relationship and defining those. So we'll look at those. The next part we're going to use, if I remember right, hey, Thomas, I believe we have a poll that's coming up. So I have a question. We're going to be talking about dynamic filter options for a second. And we have a quick poll question about how your use of dynamic filter options. But dynamic filter options, if you're not familiar with them, this is me. So is me is super common, comes out of the box. We can write our own. So if I want to have is my department, is in the same groups as me, whatever you want to have, you can have. Really, really useful for joining extra data that's out there. Like has a short description of something, or this and this and this and this and then this, whatever the case may be, we can have this effectively run a pre-query to come through. I'm a big fan of dynamic filter options because they provide a better user experience for our users, because they can just do is me. I never want to have a user have to type in JavaScript something. I want to have my reports customized to them, and we can do that. It removes the complexity of some of the reporting. So really, really useful to have. And then it also allows us to make some reports more efficient. Rather than having big dot walks and several layers of dot walks, which we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, it allows me to do some shortcuts. The way that dynamic filter options work is that they run first and then they provide that information to the main query. So there are use cases for these where it allows me to get a subset of the data that I want and then pull back to them, and just make really complicated queries a lot less complicated. Like one of the ones I might use would be, give me all the CIs that have P1s right now, because I want to see, or have outages. Give me all the cases for CIs that have outages right now. Something that I have to kind of get data from multiple places, but what I'm asking for is really consistent. Like I want CIs. There's no variable there. I just want the CIs that have outages right now. I can define that as a dynamic filter option. Maybe we'll try that one as we go live. All right, so we talk about dynamic filter options. I believe I can share here. We're going to end the poll. So right now, it looks like hopefully we're sharing the poll results.
Yep.
Okay, great. From there, a lot of people using them. Great. This is going to make them easier for you. So we're gonna look at it to make it easy to do. Particularly for those people who I have to ask my developer to do it. Maybe you can do it. Maybe you can help them along. I want one that looks kind of like this. And then if you're not creating them or you don't know what it is, hopefully you know now. And if we don't create them, what I hear a lot of times is that it requires scripting and I don't do that. Well, hopefully Now Assist for Creator is going to help us lower that bar. So it's something you can do because it does provide a better experience for your users. And again, some of the performance boosts can happen are quite nice to have. All right. Next, we're going to talk about something we talked about 2 weeks ago. Again, remote tables. And thank you for pulling that up. So remote tables, I lifted this slide verbatim from 2 weeks ago. So remote tables allow us to, one, get remote data and pull it in, which is really useful, really important. But it also allows us to summarize data that's in the instance. It doesn't actually have to be remote. It allows us to create a table. It looks, it smells, it behaves like a table in ServiceNow. It reports like a table. Really important. We can create any of our reports on remote tables, but it allows me to generate the data via a script. And whether I'm pulling that via integration hub and an API from external data, or I am summarizing and running a Glide aggregate because I want to run an aggregate of an aggregate, we can do all that with remote tables. Remote tables, for right now, do require scripting, which is one of the reasons we want to talk about them here. And if you want to know more about these, we had a great session 2 weeks ago on several topics about shaping your data and reporting on bigger data, extending your data. We talk about it then, but we're going to run through some examples with how we write that script and make it easier to write. Poll has ended. All right, so some people are using them. We have a few people using them, a lot of people not using them. They're not for every use case to come through. Dynamic filter options are one that everybody should be using. Remote tables with the right use cases, they're there, but because they require scripting, we're going to talk about them. And now, okay, I think we're done with the polls. Hopefully that's gone away. Thanks for that input. Appreciate it. And then as we talked about, for dynamic filter options, we ran a session earlier, I think that was earlier this year, in April, on dynamic filter options. We talked about the master dating relationships. That was 2 weeks ago. We talked a lot about remote tables in there, as well as a few other topics that listed here. Great sessions. If you're not familiar with them, they're in the archive. They're on the community. They're on YouTube. You can watch them, get the slide decks for them. But they'll go through in more detail. And what we're going to do today is, once you know that you need to have them, we're going to make them easier. We're going to do that with Code Assist. All right, next one I have in here, I really should have done animation. PA scripts. I'm not going to talk about PA scripts. I'm not going to use Code Assist for PA scripts. I actually haven't looked if it works for PA scripts. I think it should, but I'm going to recommend not to do that. And the reason for that, we covered in a different academy a while back about descripting performance analytics. PA scripts, Code Assist would make PA scripts easy because they're JavaScript, but they're not particularly efficient when it comes through. So, and there's certain cases we're definitely going to use scripts, but what we see generally is that people overuse scripts because they're not fixing their data. Before you use a script, I want you to watch this session about some of the cases where other ways of doing it, where we're going to get better performance and more reusability, better user experience. We're going to get more out of the data if we don't script. There are a few very important use cases for scripting. That's why it's there. We watched this previous academy. Well, I'm not sure if I did this one. I think I might have done this one. I'll tell you when you should use them and when you need to use them, because they're absolutely needed. But then the other uses, I don't want to make scripting too easy that we go to it and not do things the right way. So this session talks about that.
Hey, Adam, real quick before you go further, because we did have one question that came in about remote tables, and it's a kind of a broad question, but not so much. But it says, in my experience, remote tables are slow. Customers ask to reference core system tables for interface to work. What are the best use cases for remote tables? I know we talked about some use cases last session that you keep referencing. Actually, quite a few different use cases that are referenced inside of that session, but I don't know if you want to elaborate on that any.
Yeah, well, the best thing I'd say for use cases is go to your instance, go to a PDI, go look what's out of the box. Some really advanced use cases that are in there, particularly with service catalog, and where we have to get a bunch of data together and format it in a very specific way. Obviously, actually, they're used for remote data. So the default use case is I need CSM data, and I need or call center data, something that's not in ServiceNow, and I don't need to load billions of records in, or something I need occasionally. So when I bring up the record, it's actually often used as a related list. It will automatically go out and pull back that data for me. So in the integration hub remote table use cases there, now speed for that has to do with the speed of integration. So if the response is slow, or the connection between the systems is slow, then it might be slow, right? A few seconds to come through. That's why there's caching as well. Caching can be important, particularly caching just for like a minute to come through, because normally it's live all the time. But if you turn on caching, it'll do it. So it allows me, if I'm sorting, it won't be a problem. Inside the system, it's as fast as it can run. There's no inherent slowness about it, but it's got to run the query. And again, I might cache it. Where I've used it for an example that I used it on was I wanted to display PA scores, and I really have no idea why I wanted to do this, but I'm pretty sure there was a real use case for this. I wanted PA scores to be shown as a chart. I think what we had was like with all my CIs, or there was something groups like for each of my groups. I had a list view, or I wanted to do a list view that had like the number of open incidents and the SLA attainment, or something to that effect. Something like a multi-level pivot is what I wanted to get to, and it didn't, or a multi-column pivot, which I think we have in Next Experience, or is coming in Next Experience if it's not there. But this allowed me to have a remote table that ran a glide aggregate, gave me my first score for my first column, and then I could call the PA scorecard API and get the second column. So I could show PA scores in a report, right? And do some more manipulation on it. Not super common, I will give you that, but it was useful for what I needed to, because I wanted real data and this PA data next to each other. So I was able to call this API to come through. So particularly if you wanted to expose some normal traditional data with an API, whether that's Integration Hub or whether that is an API that we have, you can do that. Yeah, that's where I've seen it. I've used them for glide aggregates. Most of my use cases have not been integrations; they've not been remote, but just kind of running a glide aggregate, and so I could run an aggregate on an aggregate. Like a lot of stuff for groups is where I remember using it. And if you look out of box, you'll see some more use cases.
Great. Thank you, Adam. We're good.
All right. Okay, so we talked about description. Let's talk about a few other use cases before we get into the demo. So a few other use cases to come through. So fix scripts. And the reason I put fix scripts in analytics is because I want you fixing data. So if we change our process, we change our data, a lot of conversations I have to do with, well, that's the old data, this is the new data. Let's fix the old data. Right. So best example I have is years ago, there was an issue or something that came through where we could have tasks, I think it was specifically incidents, where they had a close date but not a resolve date. Like if you canceled them, it would close them but not resolve them. But some of the PA data we had was looking at resolve. And so we had to have this real convoluted indicator source, where it was, well, if there's a resolve date, the resolve date is null, then you want to use the close date. If the close date is null, then I want something. It was complicated. It was hard to understand. It wasn't necessarily efficient. We fixed the business rule. So that didn't happen anymore. So if you canceled it, it set the resolve date and the close date to the same date. But we got to fix the old data. Now that's a hassle. It's a hassle. But with a fix script, it's not. So we can do that. So when we're deploying changes, we want to write a fix script to go, and this is how you fix the old data, so our reporting is consistent going forward. And now we might make some assumptions. We might do, if it's this, do that, or whatever the case is going to be, but we can fix it. And I want you to make sure that when you're talking to your developers and you're changing a process, you're changing the business rule, that you're thinking about that and you're getting the data fixed if it's fixable. Sometimes it's not, and we're really changing a bunch of stuff, and that's okay. But if it's fixable, let's fix it. We're going to do that with a fix script. Yeah, you could also do a flow, but fix scripts are quick and easy, and that's a great use case to match with Now Assist. Scheduled report conditions. When you run the scheduled report, you can make it conditional. So sometimes we have report scheduling every morning, right? That's sending me an email to come through, or once a week it's sending out. Well, we can write conditions there. Any scheduled job can actually have a condition. Like I only wanted to send it on the first Monday of the month. Let's try that. We'll try that one in our demo. And some of that, well, what's the JavaScript for that and what's going through? Now Assist is going to help me get there. You still need to test it, but it can help you write that code, particularly if you're not super familiar with all the possibilities. Notification email scripts, if we're sending those out, again, adjacent to analytics as we come through. Great use case for that. And then metrics. If we're using scripted metrics, a lot of us have stayed away from that. And I do recommend staying away from it if we can just use a duration metric or something else. But if we need a scripted metric, it's a script, we can use Now Assist. Couple places I don't like to use Now Assist, and I should put PA scripts on here, so we talked about that before. But one, PA scripts. I don't want to script PA if I can avoid it, and I'll do it if I need to. All of these, if I need them, I'll use them, of course. But there's often a better way. Next one is business rules. There are use cases where we need to use business rules, but they're often overused. So I want to make sure, I want to see if I can use a flow first, a no code flow. The best script is the one you didn't write. So I want to try to avoid business rules and use flows. The same thing with script actions. I want to avoid script actions, which have to do with events. I want to use flows. Import set transformations. I used to do a lot of scripting when I was pulling in data, and I had to, coalesce this or merge these two things together. A lot of that could just go away if I'm using integration hub imports, drag and drop, pills, built-in transformations. It's faster, it's easier to read, it's easier to do all the goodness with integration hub imports. So just because you can script doesn't mean you should script. That's the important part of this slide. But there are places where we do need to script, and we'll do that as we continue on the journey of making you or having to have you script less. We're still going to work on that to get to completely low code and no code. For now, let's just be really diligent about where we script and where we don't script. All right. Okay, before we get to the demo, is there, Thomas, is there anything in the Q&A
Nope.
or chat we need to address?
Nope, you're good. You're answering them all and you don't even know it.
All right. I don't have the chat up. All right. So let's get to the demo. But before then, you're going to see this. Call me out if I do it wrong. A couple do's and don'ts to come through. This is in the docs. There's some great docs for Now Assist. It's actually, I guess my next slide is about the docs. But I think one of the things I want to stress, we talked about this at the beginning, prompts matter. They really, really matter. Here's some examples of do's and don'ts. A lot of us, well, I'll say from personal experience, if I go to Bing or DuckDuckGo or that other one that I forget the name, when I put in a search term, I really use very few words. I put my keywords in. For Now Assist and generally for AI, you want to be more verbose. The more you tell it, the better off it is. You can't read your mind, but it can if you tell it that. So we want to use very specific directions. So one of the examples you'll see, and people pull it out, if I say get a count of something, or at least early on our generation, we'll see where we're at today. It might do a glide record and a get row count. For those of you who've taken our scripting class, you might go, you're not supposed to do that. If you're just trying to get a count, don't do a glide record and a row count, because it's not as performant as using a glide aggregate. Okay. So one, we're going to work on the LLM to do that. When you just say count, do this, although there's some use cases about why, is it just the first thing and what you're going to do next? But if you say get an aggregate, it's definitely going to use glide aggregate. It's going to know. So if I know the API, if I know the table name that I want, if I know that, use that. If not, describe it, and it will do what it can for that. But be specific, as specific as you can. This is a tool to assist you. You still need to be able to read JavaScript. You have to be able to know what it does. If it can get you 95% there, but you can't identify the 5% that's missing, we still have a problem, right? It doesn't matter. It doesn't work right. It's not doing the right thing. But it makes it really easy. It makes us less to memorize, less to look up, and faster to go. So you do have to have some JavaScript knowledge. You have to have some ServiceNow knowledge. You have to know how to look it up. You have to know how to test it and run it, make sure it's working. But it's going to make it a lot faster and really help boost you up to get to more of a comfortable level of what's going on. All right. And the last part before I actually get into the demo, the docs got some standing documentation on this that walk you through some of the things we've done with troubleshooting. Also explains more about the data processing and data collection. All that stuff comes in. It's important things to understand in the world of AI, what that goes on to come through. But great documentation. Make sure you reference that. We're continuing to improve it and expand it. But what's out there is enough to get you going. Okay, and with that, let's hop over to my live instance and go through it. And I'm going to be ready for you to throw me in the ringer. All right, let's go through a couple of examples. So the first one we talked about was relationships. So let's go to relationships. I'm going to go to, let's go to incidents. Actually, we'll pull up an incident form. So as we go through, so we're looking at an incident. I'm looking at the self-service view. Maybe I don't want that. Let's see if we have the default view. or not the default. Oh, yeah, we got default view. So my default view, I want to add the number of. I'm gonna add something that just definitely comes back with data. So we have the task SLAs, affected CIs, impacted services, child incidents. Great. I'm going to go in other open P5s. That's not something that I would normally do. Normally I would do caller, but with my test data, maybe it's not the best. So we're going to come in. We're going to go ahead and open up a new tab. We're going to duplicate this, and we're going to create a new relationship. And for relationships, that's under system definition. So we'll go to system definition. We'll also see by typing relationship, it would have come up as well.
So is it safe to assume that requires sysadmin then?
Yes,
Define the relationship, which makes sense, but just want to make that clear.
Relationships, not under my CI, but it is under system definition relationships. But yeah, we are. This is definitely something that an admin needs to do. It's something we're going to be doing in a subprod. So I'm going to click new. And I'm going to call this other P5s. Again, this one may not be there, but just think about this: other for the department, other for the CI, whatever comes in where there's not a direct reference. I'm going to pick my applies to table, which is this applies to incident. That's the form we're looking at. That's the record we're looking at. And then queries from, where is it getting data from? And in this case, it's also incident. I'm looking for other incidents, but this could be problems. This could be, it could be anything you want. It doesn't matter, but it's going to query. When I look at incident, it's going to query, in this case, incident. Now, here's the point, right? I got to write a script to come through. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And what do I want it to do? What do we say? We want to get get active P5. I think this was a P5 or other active incidents with the same priority. Now to call this, I hit Control Enter. You either hit Control Enter or you hit Command Return, depending whether you're on a Mac or Windows, and that calls that calls Now Assist. So what this just did is it's giving me a prediction, and in gray is what's coming in. Now I can click off of that. If I click off it, it's going to go away. It's going to let me reject. Should let me reject. Yeah, it's going to reject the thing. I don't like that code. That's fine. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and call it back and have it predict again. To accept it, I'm either just going to click on the code or I can hit tab. I'll click on the code. Now, one thing I call in here that it actually added part of the comment because it figured out what we could do. It assumed based on this, I actually wanted to complete the word incident. And it will add comments to what it's doing. In certain cases, if it's adding a lot of code, it'll even add comments to your code for you. But in this case, what we have in here is current.add record. Now, that may not be familiar to you because it's not super common. Current.add query like this is really, really specific to relationships. Context matters. It knows that I'm in the relationship form, and it is adding code for that. And in this case, it's saying, well, we want the priority of the queries from table to be the parent priority. That sounds right. And I want the add active query, which means that current has to be active. That is exactly what I want to have. I think this is going to work and be fine. A note, it is not validating to your schema. So if priority wasn't actually priority, it was you priority, I've added a custom field. It won't know that. It won't know that. So if I didn't want it to be priority and I wanted it to be some custom field, instead of saying priority here, I'd put the name of the custom field. I can put the label, it'll guess the field name, the U underscore is better. But in this case, it knew what I was doing. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now I have other P5s. It's the wrong label, but that's okay. I'm going to come into my form. I'm going to configure related lists. And I'm in the wrong app, so I'll have to go back and fix that, but we'll be okay. And in here, we're going to have, what do we call it? We called it other P5s. Now you'll see the relationships. For references, it always has the table name and the field name because you can have multiple references on the same thing. We'll see that for like caller. We should see that for straight references, but you'll see some things that are relationships. They're not going to have that dot. So again, we're going to do other. This should just be other incidents of the same priority. That's what I should have called it. We'll click save. And now what we should see at the bottom is other incidents with the same priority. And what we see is these are all P5s. If I come back to incidents, and in my incidents, let's do all. If I wanted to pick up different priority, so we looked at P5s. So let's go to other P1s. We'll just click on this one, which is a P1. We should see other P1s at the bottom. If I wasn't in the self-service view, I added that to the default view. So I need to go back to the default view. And in the default view, we have other P1s that are going on. Again, we did a pretty simple use case, but really, really powerful if these are the things that you want to see. A question came in about, does this work in related list conditions? No, it does not. It does not do that today. But that is one we're certainly working on to talk with our inbound counterparts to go, how do we make this work? Because this is an incredibly useful feature. It's one of the most underutilized that I see, but it just makes a great user experience, right? And again, I don't need a report because that's what I want to see. I always need to know this. And so we can show that here. All right, next from relationships, after that, we had remote tables. Let's bring up remote tables. So I'm going to go to remote tables, and remote table. We're actually not, I don't know if we're going to create it, but let's do an example of one. So I'm going to click on new. What I'm doing is the new definition. Now, one of the things that we see here is that there's a lot of code in here. This is scary. It's scary for me. I'm going to get rid of it. But actually, I'll say this: really important in remote tables is the vtable module and the vquery. Really, really important. We have the examples in here, which is nice. But what we want to do, I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to put a comment in that is, what do you want to see? Anybody got any suggestions? I'm going to go with get the number of active problems by group. All right, let's do that. Now, I actually didn't press the command in here. There is a setting in Now Assist that will actually automatically fire Now Assist for code or code generation if I sit idle for 2.5 seconds. So it knows I've been doing too much. And it's just kind of going all the time and recommending things. Again, I get my recommendation in gray. I'm going to, I think it looks good. Let's go ahead and click on that. I'm going to full screen this so we can see a little bit more. So what do we have here? So in the normal execute query, which is important, I put my comment in. It's doing a glide aggregate of problem, which is correct. I want the active problems. I want to count. This is counting the assignment groups, which is fine. That's not super important here. We want where it's active. Get aggregate for the count of assignment groups. This really should have done a group by. Let's see for each group. I'm actually just going to go ahead and get rid of this and do this again. Now that could have been something I looked at when it was gray. It's okay. I'm just going to regenerate it. No, I don't like it. I'm just going to reject it again and group by group. Let's see if that confuses it. No, so it's still, in this case, I don't have on top of mind how I want it to tell how I want to tell it to do a group by, but this is okay. I can still come in and I can do an ag dot group by, and that's just an assignment group. That's right. But a key thing here, it knew to do a glide aggregate. It knew to use the add aggregate to get aggregate. Because I'm in a remote table, it knew to create an object where it's going to expect my field names to be assignment group and active problems. And then it's going to do that add row and return this out. So I did have to add a line here, and let's try it. Let's see if this works. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to exit full screen mode. We're going to do get, not get, group problem counts. We're going to save that. Oh, the table. We're not going to say, yeah, we're going to save it here. You actually need to define the table first. So that's a problem. Okay. Let's do this. We're going to come in here. We're going to go to remote tables. Now, one of the things that's interesting that comes through is it hallucinated field names for me, but that's because there was no table. It didn't exist. So it had to come in and go, well, we assume you want active assignment group to be assignment group, and we want active problems. That's a pretty reasonable description for what we're counting based on what I said. So it's coming up with reasonable things, but not necessarily the default things. So those are things you have to check. I actually like to have it write the script first, and I'm like, oh, that's a good variable name. And I don't have, V1 and V3 and GR. It's giving me more meaningful names when it makes sense. So we're going to come in and I'm going to create assignment group, active problem. So I'm creating my table. It created my name for me. Yeah, we definitely want it to be a remote table. That's good. And my column names are going to be assignment group and problem. I think it did problem counts, which I don't really like, but that will fix. Oh, active problems. That's okay. I'll take that. Active problems. I'm going to save this. No. This is going to be an integer. This is a reference to sys user group. I could type in groups, but there's lots of groups. And I'll save that. We'll come in. Let's see if I can. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay. So if I go back to my definitions, we're just going to do this really quick again. So we're going to, I'm just calling it the same thing. We're going to delete everything from here. And we're going to get the count of active problems for each assignment group. Now it actually knew that group was assignment group. That was the default. If I didn't want assignment group, I wanted something else that happened to be called groups. I'd want to spell that out. One of the things that I really like about Now Assist is that it's trained on data and it knows what group is, no matter how bad my spelling is. Or not. No, I can spell things poorly enough that it doesn't know, but in this case, it knew what I was doing. So I'll click that. We're going to accept it here, and we're going to ga.group by. I'm going to put assignment group in. And actually, in the count, we don't need assignment group here. So I'm just going to remove that. Okay, and we will put the table name in. Whoops. Group problem counts. So I selected my table. This is the script for the table. We're going to save it. And if I go back, and active problems assignment group. Active problems assignment group. That looks good. So let's go here and see what we get. Okay, so these are the active problems. We have a group called problem solving. You gotta love test data. As we come through, it's not pulling the active problems correctly. And if we take a quick look at why that is, Count, assignment group. Let's see, I think if I do number, well, I want to do number. Parse int. So I have something that's wrong there, but we're not spend time debugging it. But again, it was able to generate what was going on. It knows about add row and puts it in through here. Gives me really close to where I want to get without having to memorize the glide aggregate APIs and knowing add aggregate and get aggregate. That's right. But we would have to work through it a little bit. Okay. We're going to move on. We're going to do the dynamic filter options. Field name for problem count is wrong. That's where I did it wrong. So the problem count. Active. You're right. So I generated the prompt differently, and it's a bit alive, right? It even changing something that seems meaningless as it goes through the model, it suggests it sees something different and it generates it differently. So we'll go ahead and do active problems instead, which is what we called it the first time. We'll come back in here. There we go. Right. So pretty quick, couple lines, and now I have this. So if we're thinking about our use cases, it can help us out there and just generate that code, get it quick. You notice I didn't have to look up any documentation of what's going on. It's right here. If I had just read the field names, we would have been all set. Okay, so now we're going to move to dynamic filter options, and let's pull up. The first thing we're going to do for a dynamic filter option is write a script include. So we're going to go to script includes, and I'm actually going to change to the global scope. So we'll pull up our script includes. Under system definition, and we'll click on new. And again, we have a whole session on this, but we're going to focus in on the scripting part of this. So we're going to do reporting, utils. They're not particularly a great name, but we'll go with that. Default is only available in this scope, in this application scope. That should be fine for global. For scopes, that may not be good. I actually would recommend we do this in a scope, so it's all my stuff goes together. It makes my admins a little bit easier when I can go, hey, this is what we're doing. I'm going to make this available to all application scopes. If I'm doing reporting utils, that's certainly a security setting you want to think about, but I'm going to do a pretty common thing here. So we're going to go with that. It's going to be active. Very, very important. Check client callable. Gotta check client callable. Dynamic filter options are being called by the client, so it's important to have that in here. So this automatically already generates this, but now we need to have some functions. So what do we think? How about I want to get all CIs with an active problem. Again, I'm going to press Control Enter to kick this off immediately, and that looks good. So I'm just going to accept it. So I want to do a glide record on CMDB CI where you know what? I don't want to do this with an active problem. This actually is fine. It's okay. Let's go with this. So we are running a join query, which I don't use. I don't know that we actually need it, but I think it's correct still. Active is true, and you'll see sometimes it does active is true, sometimes it does has active query. Doesn't really matter. Although the add active query might only work on task. I'm not sure, but this will work. Then here's what's really key for dynamic filter options, and it often in script includes. We're not going to return a record set. We're going to return an array. Super important that we're going to return an array of sysids. It got all that right. In this case, it doesn't even know that it is going to be used as a dynamic filter option, but that's what's really common in a script include, and so that's what it's going to do. So that actually should be fine. One thing to note, sometimes it'll repeat the end of this to come through, so I'm actually just going to remove, I'm just going to remove this duplicate code, and the syntax editor does highlight that for me. So we're going to remove that. Let's see if we can do another one in here. We're going to do get all incidents for VIP users. Okay. Okay, we're on a glide record, we're on incident, color, and it looks good. I'll take it. Yeah, that looks fine. I just think it's right. Now, this is one that's interesting because if I was actually going to do this, if I'm reporting on incident, actually, we don't want to do that. Well, if I was reporting on incident, I could just do my dot walk, but this still might be something where it makes it easy to do, and particularly if I need to do something else with this data. That's kind of the restrictions of dynamic filter options. So we have these. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Okay. Who needs to have this? We're just going to do SMC internal. I hope I have that on here. I don't. That's a new security setting in Vancouver, I think. I don't actually remember being asked that before. Actually, and while we're on here, I'm going to make one more call out. So when Now Assist is available for you, you're going to see these little dots, little stars, powered by Now Assist. It should be available in any script editor that you see, particularly anything where you see the new browser over here. There are some fields that have JavaScript in them or XML, but they're not actually script fields. They won't have this. This is looking for a dictionary option that says script, and that's in there. To run this, it is Now Assist is licensed per user. You have to have a specific role, which is now.assist.creator. You have to have that role for this to be enabled. So if some user does not have this, it's because you don't have the role. It's not installed or you don't have the role. But if I see it and you don't, it's because you don't have the role. Okay, so we have that in here. We've saved this. So let's go back to the filter option to finish this off. So we're going to do CIs with active problems. I hope there are some. Otherwise, this is going to not work particularly well. We're going to go to dynamic filter options. In my dynamic filter option, we're going to come in really quickly to define this. And this is CIs with active problems. I actually like to be pretty verbose in this. Sorry, not is me. Me is very descriptive, but in this case, this is what we're getting. The script to call this is new report utils. I'm going to go back and copy that. So this is JavaScript. The script is a JavaScript. This field's actually not defined as a script. So I have to type it in. I don't have code assist in here for that. And this script is pretty limited on what it can do with security sandboxing. So there's probably some reasons for that, but right now we have that. I'm going to go back because I never trust my typing and copy that. Oh yeah, it was reporting utils. So copy and paste is your friend. So reporting utils, and we're going to call the method. That should be good. The field type. Actually, I think this is a we have sysid. Yeah, sysid. It's available for a filter. This can also be used as a default value or a reference qualifier. Really, really powerful for reporting. We're focusing on filters. The reference table for this. Now, where do we want this table to show up? I am getting a list of CI, so anything with a CI will work here. Where I am going to put this in is incidents. I have a feeling I'm not going to get any data here, but let's go with that. The roles, so this is going to be available to everybody, but you can specify this is only available to this role or not that role, because so I don't have to have too many options for things that don't matter. Incident. Oh, not incident. It's what this is CI, so I think I need CMDB. That's right. Configuration item. There we go. So any place I'm referencing CMDB CI, I should be able to do this. Whether it's an incident, it's a problem, it's a security problem. Every place I'm referencing a CI, I can do this. So we'll save it. And now we're going to go to incident. And I'm going to wrap up real quick. So if we go to incidents, so now if I go into my filters, I can do configuration item is dynamic. And now I have CIs with active problems. Super simple, super efficient. And it's going to pull back in here. This is one of the differences when you define this. It's actually showing the user which CIs have problems, what it's doing for. But if I come into this, again, just CIs with active problems. Really, really awesome, really, really powerful. And we saw how quickly we created these. Again, so really useful. We really want to get that. Okay. With that, I am going to end my demo because I am out of time. And I don't think we have many questions that are in here.
We have a couple. Just one. When this is installed, when you have a license in it and it is on your platform, is it scope specific or it'll be there for everything?
It'll be there for everything. It's platform.
Yep.
To come through. Once it's turned on, on the instance, it is once it's turned on the instance and you have the role, you'll see it. It does require the role to have it.
Okay. And then the other thing is this available on PDIs?
It is not available on PDIs. Great question. Thanks for asking that. Right now, none of the Now Assist is available on PDIs.
Okay, great.
If you need for all the Now Assist stuff, you want to talk to your account team about what we can do to get you some hands-on or what goes through that. But not available in PDIs. We will be doing Knowledge. I hope all of us are coming to Knowledge. Only 7 months away. Feel like tomorrow for those of us who are preparing for it. We're looking to have stuff in Now Learning, and then in Knowledge, we'll certainly be doing a lot more stuff to get your hands on.
Okay, great. And because it has to do with it, Tara real quickly wanted to share some information about how customers can get involved in this.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have a slide. It just came to me while Adam was presenting, but most of you know me. I'm Tara Fisher, outbound product manager for Platform Foundations and Analytics, and I am interested in working with any customers who want to be part of the Gen AI Omniverse. I do have documentation and collateral I'm happy to share with you. So if you are interested, you want to help become part of that process, help us train our data, be part of all that, get some one-on-one experience with us, please reach out to me directly. I would be happy to go over everything with you and see if you would be a great fit. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. And we are at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and close up. Adam, thank you. Awesome session as usual with everything that you usually present. So really grateful for that. And I know people are going to get a lot out of it. This recording will be out, like I said, later on this afternoon or early tomorrow morning. One other thing I want to make sure that I share real quick is Vancouver is out there. So this actually talks about with the release coming. Vancouver is out there. There still are a couple other sessions from sister organizations that are going to be showing that. I think there's one on the 18th and one on the 24th. So this slide is still relevant for that. And then also in 2 weeks from now, we're actually going to do a session where we're going to show you how you can move analytics content from Core UI over to the next experience. So you definitely want to be present for that one as well. And as usual, thank you, Adam. Thank you, Tara. Thank you, Dan, for being available. And then thank you to everyone that has came, and we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Thank you.